Hello everybody and welcome to tonight's episode of Mapping It Out. My name is Guy and I'm going to be taking you on the journey not only of epic battle maps in the Battlemap editor, but also epic maps in the DEIOS project. And we're going to be looking at all kinds of things tonight, including some very stranger things. I'm not entirely sure what that link is all about myself, so it's going to be very strange, I'm sure. We're talking about asset managers and we're talking about deprecation, which is coming soon. We're actually going to do a bit of a demo to see what actually will be happening to your maps on that. So lots of things going on. Now, if you have questions, please write the word question in caps in the front of your question so that I can see it. We are streaming to both Twitch and to YouTube, and I'm getting to see the chat from both. Yes. Let's see. If you have any, jot them down, write them down, let us have them, and I will answer, or I will ask them of Till as soon as I get an opportunity to do so, or as soon as it kind of fits into the show. And if I miss it, ask it again. We also have some wonderful folks in chat who are moderators, and they're monitoring and will be there to help you out with any questions you might have. And good to see some familiar faces in chat as well. Now, let's jump straight into it. So, as usual, welcome to Till.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Pleased to be here. Well, yes, I can already read in chat. It's true. Vienna is boiling at the moment. I think it's 8 p.m. here, and I'm still sitting in about 28 degrees Celsius here in my office. So.
Now you know how I felt when I used to do the shows from South Africa. Actually, I don't think we ever did shows from South Africa, but we did them from Japan, and it got to that heat too. I feel sorry for you. It's really, really, really hot. It's a lovely day here in London if you are in this side of the river. Anyway, Till, June is done, and we're in the middle of the sort of the development phase thing,
yes,
so to speak. Well, shall we jump straight into the news?
Yeah, of course. Let's jump into
that
them.
That means it's time for you to perform some music.
Yes, of course.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go, and hopefully some music from Till. There's nothing. There's no music.
No music. Oh my God! You didn't hear it.
I didn't hear anything. You
no.
literally just went silent.
I just yeah, that was my interpretation of the koi.
The koi. The song of the koi. All right, there we go. I like that. Till, right. So June is come and gone basically. So quickly. And how are things looking? How are things progressing?
Okay, so we're talking battle maps at the moment.
Yes, battle maps, correct.
In that, well,
there we go.
It's thank you very much. It's right now. It's a typical in between development phase that we're in. So we've already, as you can see, the green bar. We've already tipped off and finished all the stuff that we have planned for Q1. It kind of shifted a little bit into Q2 and set us kind of a little bit back. But currently we are working on several things for the Battlemap editor. One is the new asset picker and the improved loading performance for that, because I think it was in June, we transitioned the custom assets, so the things that you've uploaded or the assets that you upload for your own map making, they are now moved to a CDN, to a distribution network that has several servers on the different continents, which means uploading and managing and loading those assets is much faster. But still, we have quite a long loading time when you launch the editor. And that is mainly because we are kind of collecting all the assets and we're preloading them before we bring you in the editor, and we're not really happy with that. So we took a kind of a two-step approach to actually deal with that. Changing the way that we kind of request assets on the fly while you're searching for them or while you're browsing the editor, or the asset library, and B, not handing everything at the start, but instead having a clever little tool, a little helper script that kind of hands the assets as they are requested, which means that the initial loading times should go down quite drastically. But now we're kind of fine-tuning and tweaking how fast the server responses are so that searching for assets, browsing assets actually feels fluid. And that's where we are in terms of that. It comes with a new UI and some new features for asset browsing. We're going to look at that today. But we're also taking this opportunity to kind of rework our DungeonFog, our Battlemap editor UI. We're not doing a complete work over yet. That is to be done next year. But we are kind of cleaning up a little bit, do some housekeeping and make things a little bit easier to visually see, perceive, and use. So it's kind of a UI UX improvement phase that we're also in. And lastly, with the community hub, which was quite successful, we're now also looking at better ways to onboard new users, help them to find the ways around, get used to browsing the community hub, searching for maps, but as well as getting used to the editor and learning your ways around in the editor. Now, you and I, we have created a lot of amazing tutorials to help people, but now we're looking at ways to kind of bring those tutorials closer to the user while they are actually working in the editor, or at least while they're waiting for the editor to load up.
Just don't make them like Photoshop's.
No, I hate that too. Like, no, trust me. No, we're not doing that. No, what we are thinking is doing small tidbits instead of the loading icon in the front when you load up a map, as well as there is a little helper at the bottom that you can use where we can actually also put videos. So that's experimenting and trying to improve the experience for new users to actually feel the way around DungeonFog.
Fantastic. We've got some questions in chat. Lord God asks, does this include, in terms of the asset management system, does this include async or asynchronous loading of assets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
When you expect more and you just get a yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Okay,
yes. So right now, what we're doing is we are, I think it's called a manifest. So when the editor loads up, it's requesting a manifest of all the assets. It's not preloading all the assets already, but at least it needs a list of all the assets that it could load. And so many of you might experience that when you have a lot of categories open, like when you have a lot of packs open, you can see this little counter in the top bar that says loading 1,242 assets, and you have to wait until that is finished to continue working. So seeing the list of categories, that is the manifest, but getting the assets into the editor, especially when you have a lot of those categories open, is actually when the service starts saying, oh, you want to see that asset, let me request it. So to get rid of that, we are saying, okay, we're not loading the full manifest, but we're loading a smaller manifest at the beginning. And when you start browsing the assets, we are then asynchronously requesting the assets and loading them into the editor. And unfortunately, we're not there yet to show a live demo of it. I'm pretty sure in the next mapping out in July, we will be able to do so. But I have prepared a few of the design mockups that Andy is currently working on implementing so that you get a better understanding of how the new asset picker looks like.
Fantastic. Another question from Nick Fink. Is pre-filtering an option, sort of fantasy versus cyberpunk?
Yes. Yes, there are several options. We're going to see that in the mockups soon. You can filter by packs, you can filter by artists, you can filter by specific keywords. So there's a lot of options where you can pre-filter stuff. And eventually, so this is not going to be part of the implementation that we're currently working on, but this is then a succession to it. We will be giving you better ways to actually organize those assets for your own needs. So,
till when are we expecting to see this stuff starting to be implemented? Do we have a sort of an ETA?
well, we have an internal ETA, which is still shifting as we speak. Every Monday on our Monday evening meetings, actually, we're looking at our sprints and our tasks that we want to achieve. And it's still kind of moving forward, backward every time. Ideally, we want to be ready by the end of August with it. It might be earlier, it might be much earlier, but it might be a bit later. We will see. Best guess would be somewhere between end of August, early September. Because also keep in mind now that at least here in Austria, by the end of this week, our summer vacations are starting. So children, schools are out, which means a lot of our team members who have family are taking a vacation break in the next 2 months. So we kind of try to do all the big summer vacations somewhere at the end of July, early August, so that we then at mid-August, we can all come back together.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes absolute sense. All right, let's talk about the new asset sort of asset manager picker.
Yes.
We've got some mock-ups here, so I'm just going to bring them. Nope, that was
Goodbye.
taking you out. Okay, goodbye. Let's try this one. That's better. Simply because of the joys of how the internet works. I've just got to switch over. No, I don't. What am I doing? Oh my goodness. I thought I had to switch views yet. We don't have to do that. So give me a second here. And there we go. Right, we are back on track. Sorry about that, folks. I thought I had to change screens, but not just yet. So we're talking the new ways of browsing assets, and this is a work in progress. Please bear it in mind. So
Yes.
what are we seeing here, Till?
Okay. Moving myself a little bit to the side is, well, apparently we have the prop tool selected at the moment, and we can see that we have kind of reworked a little bit the way that we display the prop as the active prop that you're currently working with. So there's the name, the artist, additional text to it, so that you can see and that you can use to then actually trigger a new search. And of course, the preview image. And then hidden by me here, this is actually when you haven't searched for anything and you're kind of in a blank state, we're showing you, this is a different way of showing you the asset packs that are available. So this is a preview of all the asset packs, which means I think it's aesthetically more pleasing. It shows we're going to define for every pack, we're going to define some kind of highlight asset that is iconic for this pack. And this should give an easy way to actually browse different asset packs and then click on one to go into the pack. So if you would now click on Grease, you would.
Sorry,
yep. You did it. That's perfect.
I did it. Oh.
Yeah. So now you're inside the asset pack, and the important part again is that you can see we completely got rid of this weird list of categories or folders that you have to decollapse to browse. We're just showing you all the assets, and they're going to be sorted in a way that we feel is the best way. I think you can change the sorting. I'm not 100% certain about that. I think it's sorted alphabetically and then with other priorities like matching keywords and stuff like that. And you have the search bar always on top. Hallelujah. So whenever you scroll, you're not scrolling away the search bar anymore. You will actually keep the search bar there. And you can. So what we did, it's not being highlighted here on screen. I don't have a screen for that. But what you can do is you can multi-select assets by just control clicking on them, which automatically loads them into the random tool. So when you have multiple assets selected and you start clicking on the stage, it will automatically randomize them, which is, I think, also much more convenient than beforehand. If you flip to the next page, let's see what's there. Right. So coming back to the question that we had before, clicking on the magnifier glass, you will get all the different ways of sub-filtering and sorting and categorizing things inside a pack or inside your search result. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do.
Quick question for this, Till. This is from Damien, the DM. Does this mean the new tagging system is coming? Will user tags exist? Can user tags exist without making assets part of the custom collection? That's 3 questions.
Okay, so yes, the tagging system is coming. Of course, we will start with our tagging first, and then we will work user taggings into the system, because that again is then something where you can probably through the new advanced asset manager that is coming, you will be able to collect, sort, structure all the assets in a way that you prefer them to be structured, which then also means you can give them additional keywords and tags as you like, which then is kind of user preference. And not, well, we might think about ways where you can publish them, but well, let's not let's not get ahead of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I think a very neat screen is the next one.
All right, let's go there. I've got more questions for you, but
yeah.
This is a good one.
Right-clicking into the editor, into the list, actually gives you a lot of additional options. For example, you can adjust the zoom level for the assets. So if you prefer smaller preview pictures, but more of them, you can zoom them, which is right above my head. Its stream quality is not allowing me to actually read what is there. Let me quickly check.
Deselect selection, select all, or add
to
selection.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. So there are additional options for right-clicking where you can work with your selection model here.
Fantastic. I've got some more questions for you, if that's okay. And I've just scrolled up. Will you be able to search for an asset tag and then have random asset placement? So trees, and then just start clicking and it'll just randomly add trees.
Not just by typing it. What you can do is you can search for a tag, for example, trees. The search result will give you all available trees, and then by holding shift click or control click and selecting all the trees that you would like to load into your random placement, you can do it like that.
Perfect. I think that also answers the next question as well. Are tags across collections? Using the tag tree, it will it select trees from sub collections as well as
it goes through all collections, like asset packs. It goes through the marketplace and your custom uploads. So if you have named, like for example, if you've named the assets or tagged the assets in your custom uploads, the search will also go over them. So one of the biggest kind of challenges we're currently facing is that with so many assets in our library, don't ask me how many, I couldn't answer that, but I feel like it must be somewhere between around 25,000. A very unspecific search can result in a search result of probably 100 hits. And now, how do you actually kind of filter down to the things that you need? Because we feel the most important part is you don't want to spend, for every asset that you're working with, you don't want to spend time in the search bar. You want to quickly type something that loads up your result, and then you want to work away from that result. So there's a lot of cross-referencing where you would like to go from, oh, I like the tree, is there a bush available for that? Or I like the rock. Are there additional other things that I could use to decorate the map? So you don't want to always type rock or gravel or tree, you want to kind of quickly click and get cross-referenced. So that is a challenge that we're currently still kind of toying around with.
Interesting. I think, yeah. All right. So another question is, can the community contribute tag suggestions for assets? I feel sometimes the keywords tags don't include all assets they should.
So not at the beginning, because I feel like the biggest risk is overloading specific assets with too many tags. They should be very on point. So we've been thinking about ways where we could potentially have a suggest tag system where you could suggest tags that we review and then decide whether or not we want to take them. But we wouldn't allow users to actually just add tags to our tag system. Because I mean, I'm very naive here, but I'm only thinking about accurate text, but overloading them with accurate text. But I'm pretty sure we can all very quickly think about ways to troll the community there with tags or words that you don't really want to see on a menhir.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is looking very exciting, Till. There's no more slides on this.
There should be one more.
There should be one more.
Yes, which I think is the coolest. It's a bit hard to interpret what are you seeing here, because how do I display that on just one slide? But you can extend the library into a separate window. So if you're working on a computer with two monitors, you can actually extend the library to a second window and put that wherever you like, which A, gives you much more space for browsing assets, and B, allows you to be, it's kind of a first step into the direction. Now we're still browser based, so we're not going to go insane about that. At least not until we put the whole stuff into DEIOS. But it's a first step into making your panel layout flexible. And me personally, the most time I spend is browsing assets. Whatever I do on map making, I feel like I'm really stuck in that list at the moment. And if I have, and I have a big second monitor, if I can put that there, reduce the size of preview images, and then I can probably have about 40, 60 assets at one glance, and then just click, use. I think this is an absolutely amazing feature.
Do you think this will be the same for textures?
It is. It already is.
Okay.
It is the same for textures, tokens. So whenever you browse, and that's why we call it an asset picker, because an asset could be a prop, a texture, a token.
Right.
I think that's it.
Path.
Well, that's true. Paths are unique objects. Yes, true.
So, because I must admit, you're saying, what do you spend the most time on? I think, yes, assets, I think I spend a lot of time on, but I also spend a lot of time looking at a texture going, is this the right texture to add as an extra layer?
Yeah.
Is this the right texture? I'm super excited. I think chats, there's much rejoicing in chat about multi-screened options and things like that. So that's very exciting, Till. Very, very exciting. And we're hoping to see this by the end of August, September, somewhere around there. All right. Perfect.
Again, I think next mapping it out, we will be ready to actually review the first implementation in our test service, so we can do a live demo of what we are currently working on.
Fantastic.
And then I feel like August is still needed to tweak and fine-tune, because it is such a core change to how you use DungeonFog that we're not going to hand it out before we feel 100% confident that it is better than before.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, changing gears now. The deprecation is coming and we have a date. Talk to us a little bit about this, Till.
Okay, it sounds much more intimidating than it actually is, but we have been, I think it was in 2021, I can't even remember, we have been shifting to, we've skipped version 4 and just went into version 5. And this means that we are currently running 2 different renderers on our service. The old one that still can render the V3 maps, and the new one that is kind of continuously developed too. And eventually there's going to be a V6 next year. But it is a pain in the ass to maintain and bug fix for old V3 editors, because if we, like, it's not being used anymore. Every new map gets created on V5. We're way past the point where we feel like V5 is unstable and we need to go back to V3. So we want to get rid of V3 maps. We don't want to support a V3 renderer anymore. And that means deprecation, again, is a very intimidating word there. We're auto-converting. When you open an old map, you currently are asked whether or not you want to open it still as V3 or as V5. We're taking away the question. When you open a map, it will get converted to V5. And you will still get an option to whether or not you want to keep your brushes, because that was the biggest problem from going V3 to V5, was the way that our brush system worked. So we're switching that, which means you're being asked whether or not you want to keep brushes. If you went absolutely bonkers on your map with brush strokes in the V3, it might break the V5 map. That's why we're asking you for that. I think you wanted to do a demo, so I can walk you through. I can walk you through this.
Yeah. So I have a whole bunch of V3 maps, all my beautiful V3 maps, and we found this one which we thought might work. So we're going to open up this one quickly.
Yes.
And we'll
there you go. Still the old DungeonFog logo. So old is V3 now.
Yeah. There we are. Okay.
There you go. So this is now still the V3 editor.
Yes. We've lost all of our fancy tools.
But you have a little yellow button on the top that says convert to V5. So usually when you open a V3 map, we still give you the old V3 renderer, and we've just implemented in the old V3 renderer this button. So for the future, when you click on the map, you will actually skip this whole open V3 and click on that button part. When you click on it now, and you go on yes, continue, this is where you will end up opening an old V3 map. You will get this screen. We're going to improve it a little bit, and it will say, well, do you want to keep your brushes or skip your brushes?
What should we do?
Well, keep them. Let's see what happens. If you keep them, the system takes the old brush mechanic and translates it into the new brush mechanic. And ideally, the map will open at the end. Worst case, it will get a gray WebGL error screen. But it worked perfectly fine. However, it is an automated system that is updating your brushes. So while we did our best to do it as accurate as possible, it might be that some of the brush details are lost or look different.
And we'd sort of see that in the content, I'm imagining, where we'd see the layers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you should now be seeing, if you scroll in the content list, you should be just looking for the little brush icon, and you will see, there you go.
Yeah, here, so we've got quite a lot of that added in now.
Yeah.
Which is still fine. It looks okay to me, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, and again, that's for the past almost 1.5 years, we now have made the experience that when people convert the maps from V3 to V5 manually, we don't get a lot of complaints. We don't get a lot of crashes. Sometimes the map crashes because you just went completely crazy with brush strokes in the old system. But I would say about 95% of the conversions work perfectly fine. If in case your map had crashed, you can still use the old map history to revert to the old v3, open again, but then remove all the brushes. So that's what's happening. And what we're doing in August is August 29th, is we're kind of reducing the bridge to just open every map in v3. And if you open a map, you will get asked whether or not you want to keep the brushes. If you say yes, and everything converts perfectly fine, you're good, done, didn't affect you beyond that. If the map crashed, you will actually have to first rework the old v3 map. No, that doesn't work. You have to delete the brushes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you want to actually be sure, that's why we're doing the announcement today, and we're going to do more announcements through our website and social media. If you want to have the security of really changing every map by yourself, you still have until August 29th.
Well, that's it. And as chat is saying, some things did vanish, some real ruts sort of disappeared in the mix. And a lot of chat is going, but those should have been paths anyway. And you go, yes, well, that's exactly it. So I think even if you are losing some of the detailing, you're going to want to replace it with other stuff anyway. You know, you're going to want to go in with your path tools and just all of the new really cool stuff that's come out since V3, really, and the better brush, the tool system and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a lot of excitement that we can look forward to. Now, Till, we've got a new asset pack dropping.
Yes, it has already dropped.
It has dropped. It has dropped.
Yes.
Has anyone in chat used the new assets that dropped yesterday? Does anyone know what they are? Because it was secretly dropped, wasn't it?
Well, semi-secretly, because I instantly released the map as a public map.
I see. Okay.
So some of you might have already spotted it. But the official news announcement is going to, like the DungeonFog website news announcement is, I think, going out on Thursday. And today here on stream, we're telling you about the new pack.
All right. Well, here we go. And chat's still talking about V3. So the new pack is a torture chamber. Now, Till, what inspired this torture chamber? Where did this very macabre idea come from? Because it's lots of dead bodies on.
Yeah. Okay. So Tony and I, we regularly sit down together and we talk about what assets are still missing. Like, what did we do? What didn't we do yet? And that was actually, I think, that was probably something we discussed in fall last year, where we said, wait, we have some prison stuff. In the Victorian asset pack, we have an Iron Maiden, but we actually don't have a real terrible torture chamber that kind of scares the shit out of your players when they go there and they see all the gore and all the instruments and all the terrible stuff that's happening there. And I feel like when you're playing, let's say, Curse of Strahd or kind of gothic horror games, that is a very critical set. That's a very important pack that you need. It doesn't have to be that gory and that bloody as I did it here. The cool thing is Tony is super excited about kind of history facts. So he actually researched medieval torture instruments and what are they called? How do they look? How do they work? And we tried to be in a good mix between visually interesting and accurate. So there you can see we have kind of those wooden crosses that you can strap people on. We have I kind of cheated because I used the dissection table from the
yes,
laboratory. And I think I've used a few skulls from other packs. But generally speaking, it's all like you have those cages. You have this, I don't know, torturing cooking pot. You have the crosses. You have the
rack down
heated
here.
Irons. You have a bucket full of blood that has been wiped to clean the floor. We have terrible iron chains and stuff like that. We have those holding holes where people can be dropped into, and I'm hiding it at the moment, but we have the rack. Sorry, I don't know the
headman's axe.
Yes, and chopping block. Torture chairs, and the skeletons that you can fit into it. So I think this is a quite amazing set.
Absolutely. I think
the one thing that's missing at the moment is Tony sent me after I released the pack. Tony said, "Oh my God, I forgot the Iron Maidens." So there's a set of Iron Maidens that we could potentially quickly add to this map, but they are now contained in the asset pack as well.
They're now included in the whole thing. I think just looking at the time, we have got a lot still to get through.
Yes, of course.
Tilt. So I think some of the suggestions for the dungeon is that this is really just modeled on the DungeonFog offices.
Yes, true.
This is what happens here. It is curious at the moment that as soon as we started talking about dungeons, suddenly there was a horrid bot that came on board and started talking about all sorts of other types of dungeons.
Right, and no one blocked that.
No, they've been quashed by our wonderful Bodosaurus.
Thank you, Boo.
Has been in there. There is a question though: are there feathers?
Yeah, I saw the question. Yeah, no, not in the torture pack, but I think we do have feathers, so you can put a feather.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, it's time for the community hub. So, Till, get ready with some music.
Yes, of course. Now I can do proper music.
There we go. Oh, the bot's back. There we go. Wow, we really shouldn't talk about dungeons. Those keywords are being picked up by the spider bots out there, and sure, good heavens. All right. So, community hub. How is the community hub doing? What are our numbers like?
So, talking about the community hub, it was released also, I think it was released a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
Probably
That's right.
2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And I like the numbers. We already have 55 creators who've created quite nice profiles and started sharing the maps. So through the creators, we have already 926 maps that are shared through, like they're creators who have, I don't know, I think the biggest one was 79 maps being shared by one creator. Some creators have started with 1 or 2 maps, which is totally fine. So in total, if you look at all the creators that are already on the hub, we have 55 creators and 926 maps out there. Our public map library is much bigger. It still has 8,373 maps at the moment. Which means we need to still do a little bit of convincing to get all those previous map creators to create their own profile, because then those numbers will slowly go into more creators with more maps in their profiles. We're not going to manage to get all of them because, of course, some people have changed gear, are not playing anymore, don't use DungeonFog anymore. But we also, so that is work in progress. We're implementing the search into the community hub page. which means that the public library search will actually vanish in the near future, and you can browse all the maps directly through the community hub, which again is quite exciting because we are slowly starting to work in algorithms and ways to recommend maps to you. If we see that you like a lot of fantasy maps, then we will definitely recommend more fantasy maps to you. If you clone specific tavern maps, for example, then the system might recommend other creators who are doing tavern maps. So the goal is over the rest of the year to get the hub to become something that I think all are enjoying with quote intelligent systems that are kind of taking away some work and are helping you to get the maps that you're looking for.
Absolutely. Till, I know obviously the average map is going to be a fantasy map.
Yes.
But do you have, like, what is the average fantasy map? Is it taverns or ships or castles?
I don't. It would be interesting to look into that. I don't have the numbers on that. I have a gut feeling. I'm really, to be honest, that's a good question for you, community. Why are there so many tavern maps? How often do you play in a tavern map? Is there? I feel like, I mean, I do that. I always do the same thing. I create a tavern map. But then I'm like, but why? My players usually, they sit and drink and play games and chat and kind of do social interaction. They barely ever start to brawl in tavern maps. So I'm really wondering, why are there so many tavern maps out there? They are definitely on the list. There's an interesting, I was expecting to have much more dungeon or building maps, but the amount of outdoor maps is growing rapidly. So, which actually is good, because that means that the way that you can decorate outdoor maps is convenient in DungeonFog.
I absolutely admit, the more DungeonFog expanded the capacity for outdoor, the more outdoor maps I used to make. I remember way back when you actually at one point suggested that we make rooms that had the grass texture so we could put assets into the rooms, because the map didn't handle all of the assets being on the canvas, not in rooms. So I can see that being a definite thing. Absolutely. So Nicholas Kopp asks, ever thought about creating maps with an AI based on your existing maps? I mean, we do that with faces and fantasy pictures now. So it's like, yep, next button is just DungeonFog generate map.
I mean, honestly, it would be ignorant to say that this isn't going to happen eventually. Right now, our natural next step will be having a generate button where you can preset stuff. Like it should be, again, let's say it should be a torture chamber, or it's a dungeon and it should include a torture chamber, and you press on generate and you get a map that kind of logically puts together preset rooms and decorations that you can then edit. I do remember when I was still a web designer, I backed a project, I think it was on Kickstarter, that was calling itself the first AI-based web designer, a tool that kind of, based on preferences, creates your website out of an AI. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be without a job soon. Let's look at what they're doing. It was terrible. So I don't think that for map making, for visual, I'm not sure if the technology is already there. But it is going to be eventually. I think this is probably kind of the race to 2030, probably is who's going to do that first wins.
Do it properly as well.
Yeah, and properly.
All right, you wanted to highlight some community stuff in terms
Yes.
of the layout.
Oh,
and
right.
That sort of thing.
If you
Someone
that
was,
was
someone
no
was
that
actually
we
asking,
I
what is
think
a creator?
yes, I think that we can browse quickly through that list.
Okay.
Is if you are still uncertain how to become a creator, it is super simple. In the right menu that you can get when you click on your profile, you get this new thing called My Hub page. When you click on that, you are already in the process of creating your own hub page. And now all you need to do is click on the the areas that I've highlighted here to customize your header, to customize your highlight maps, to add a little description about you. And if you go further down, to create a vanity URL, and then that's it. That's your profile. You're already set up, and you can start following, and you can see who's following you, and done. So if you're wondering how can I get my own profile, how can I become part of those 55 creators at the moment, become the 56th creator, that's all you need to do.
There you are.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right. So now the time that I always enjoy is to reveal this month's community member, who is the creator of the month. But before you do that, how could we become the community creator of the month?
By making maps public, by having a beautiful profile, by just being an active community member, and that's all. Like we every week we're browsing the latest released maps. We are browsing now we're also looking at the profile. There's a good chance if you see me following you, there's a good chance that you're already on the list. And the more team members are following you, the higher the chances that you might be on the community spotlight in the future.
There you go.
Yeah, it's curated, which means this is stuff pick. This is where we sit together, we review maps, we look at things that are people doing. It usually ends up with someone being like, oh, have you seen this? How did he do this? How did they do this? We don't know. And then we're like, oh, this is amazing. This is beautiful. And then very soon you can see the notifications going bing, bing, bing. Bodhi has followed you, Till has followed you, and Spelunky, Herbert, Thomas, and the rest of the team. And then we have a list, and we go through the list and say, okay, who do we pick? And that's where you end up being in the community spotlight.
All right. And who is this month's community spotlight member?
Do you want me? Wait, shouldn't there be a transition?
There's a slide coming up. There's a slide coming up. I have a slide with a name on it.
Don't we have a transition? Shouldn't I sing? I was expecting to sing.
We did that already.
Oh, we did that already. My bad. It's very hot here. Like if you follow my I have a temperature indicator here in my room because I had to close the window. Now everything's heating up even more in here. Sorry. Yes, Mokattam. Mokattam is I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mokattam is the creator of the month. And we are giving our community spotlight out to him, I hope, them. Because if you look at the maps, I really like the way those maps are colored and the level of detail to those maps. Also, I really enjoy looking at maps that are not automatically fantasy, because those are sci-fi maps. And again, the level of detail, the level of lighting is super interesting. So I think by the way, it's not just it's a good variety of stuff. It's fantasy maps, it's sci-fi maps. I think there are some modern maps too. I was using a few of them in my latest games. I think this one actually went into my game because I was looking for a temple, a cliffside temple, that has a little bit of a twist. And I was like, yep, brilliant. All I need to do is brush it up a little bit, change it to my games, and done. So amazing work. Mokattam, lovely. And
congratulations.
yeah.
Congratulations.
There's also, if you want to see more, you can actually go to our DungeonFog website. In the news section, we have released our community spotlight for Mokattam, where you can follow all the links and get to his profile page and browse all the maps that have been created by Mokattam.
All the maps.
All the maps.
Just so many different maps. These are lovely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely
again,
lovely.
like a lot of detail, a lot of love put into those maps. I really like them.
There you are. All right, congratulations once again to Mokattam. Okay, now that brings us to the end of the Battlemap maker.
Yes, maker.
Behind the scenes update. Till, any last words before we move away from Battlemap Maker to Project DEIOS?
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be a very exciting month now into July. And I'm looking forward, because this is typical in between stuff where we're working on so many things that we can't really show stuff. I personally enjoy showing stuff so much. So I can't wait for the next mapping it out in July, when we can then actually do some live demos. But I hope everyone enjoyed the news and got a good impression of what our team is currently working on for the online Battlemap editor. And now I'm super excited to talk about Project DEIOS.
Folks, you are not going to believe what we show you tonight. I didn't. I was like, okay, Till, this is great, but you used Photoshop, didn't you? And he went,
nope.
No. All right, here we go. DEIOS opening.
Bum, 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 bum.
There we go. Thank you, Till, for that. All right. I really do enjoy those little musical interludes, I must admit. Right. So, Till, we are looking today at Project DEIOS in our Mapping It Out series.
Yes.
If you just joined us, welcome to that. Now, if you have a question, please put the word question in front of your question. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Linux. We're talking about visuals, and we're talking about the latest batch of new assets and when we might be expecting those. So some interesting things to get through, but some amazing stuff too when we look at what is coming up. So yes, absolutely. I'm very, very excited to have you here, Till. So let's jump straight into it.
Yep.
An update. Where are we? What's going on?
So much things going on. As I said before with the DungeonFog Battlemap editor, today's DEIOS update is a work in progress in between update, because we're currently working on so many things, none of them being really ready to showcase already, but all of them making great progress. So we decided to say, okay, let's just look at all the things that my team is currently working on, to get a good understanding of how all those threads are coming together for a bigger update that is going to happen in end of August. But we are working on bigger tasks at the moment, which means that those tasks just take time to be developed. We're going to see what exactly those tasks are and what the progress is there. But generally speaking, I think today's DEIOS update and July's DEIOS update will mainly be talking about the things that we're doing while we're getting there before we can actually showcase stuff in August. So just to put that out up front, let's look at what we're currently doing. Well, we have already started on working on the Tectonics 2. This is in development. We have started working on the copy and paste. We have, at least we are, I think next week, starting on rivers and roads. and we are about to finish the UI cleanup. So those are just a few things that we're currently working on. We also have, what was it called? We did a major refactoring, which allowed us to now bring our Linux build back up to speed, because for the past 2 updates, I believe Linux was not supported. And now we are back on track with Linux again. So yeah, that's what has been happening in January, where am I? In June, and what is going to happen in the next 2 months. But I have prepped a lot more detail for you so that we can actually look at that.
Look at that. Right. So just as we look there, finish world maps version 1 at the end of Q2, which is looming. How confident are you that we're going to do that?
Well, if we're going to end stuff at the end of August, it would require some serious time traveling to actually end it in Q2. But we're pretty confident, because with the Tectonics 2, which we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, the rivers and roads, and some other things that we're currently cleaning up, we're in a good place, in a good position to say, okay, now let's pause world editing. The export has been released, yes. The authentication has been released. So we already made a lot of progress. And I remember in the last stream, last month's mapping it out, we were talking a little bit about the programmer's fatigue of always working on the same tools. So fall is definitely going to be kickoff for city maps. I'm super confident. It's just a question of whether or not do we need September, October as a cleanup phase for finishing the things or patching, bug fixing things that we've handed out. But if everything goes as planned, it's probably going to be September when we start with the city map editor. If hot fixes are necessary, we need to clean up stuff, it might be October.
All right. I like that. I like that. Let's move on to talking about Tectonics 2 and all that kind of
yes.
stuff.
Okay. So apologies for the that I put here, but the reason why we have now a big work package is because those things are interconnected, and it's really hard to do things without doing the other things. So everything kind of bases on the new Tectonics system, which includes coastline precision. That is just purely the way that coastlines are rendered is still very clunky, edgy, and that should be more precise, more rounded, more natural. That's actually just a minor task of the Tectonics. The big task of Tectonics is the height maps, because we are now working a height system into every landmass. So every landmass contains information. You can think of little segments like splines that are contained in such a landmass. And every spline contains a height information. And this height information is purely invisible. This is just an internal information that we have. But having the height information suddenly sparks a few things that we can do with it. For example, pre-coloring landmasses. Giving your landmasses, based on the color palettes that we got from Keora, giving you the pre-colors, which means that a mountain area is already pre-colored with mountain area styles. Grassland, dry things, deserts, all those regions based on the height information can be pre-colored, which actually will save you a lot of time because you don't have to brush those areas. You can definitely add to it because we're not taking away the brush tool, but we're giving you an option where we say, okay, this is pre-colored, and you can actually choose from different color modes where you say, okay, this is more volcanic, or this is more wetland, or this is more Arctic, and the colors will be, like the landmasses will be pre-colored. But we need to actually do the pre-coloring in a way that you can modify and manipulate it, we actually have to implement color layers. Right now, and if you've been using DEIOS, you've seen that. The color brushes that you use are baked into the landmass texture, which has a lot of flaws. The only way to manipulate that is to actually erase it and redraw it, which I'm not really happy with. B, depending on how big your landmass is, we run into the problem that the pixel density gets lost. So you might have experienced that you're making a really tiny brush, and you're trying to probably draw a road, and all you get are pixelated splotches. And that is because the continent, the landmass, is too big for our kind of texture map to hold all the pixel density. So when you add to it, it gets distorted. So we found a completely different tool that we can use and implement to actually make those. It's not, so my dev said it's not 100% vector-based, but it's very close to it, with super high pixel density and the ability to actually park all those colors informations on layers, which means that you can select a color layer, modify it, add to this, or create a new color layer. So layering with colors, as we have in the in our current organization grouping tool, will then be possible too. And now cycling back to the pre-coloring of the Tectonics, it only makes sense to have the new color system implemented to then populate that with the pre-coloring so that you can edit that. Okay, was that clear? I hope it was.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The height map. Sorry, other questions?
No, I've got more questions, but you're in a flow, so go.
The height map actually plays into rivers, because if you have a height map, you actually have a model that tells you how rivers could potentially flow. So again, this is kind of a two-way approach. You need a tool where you can draw rivers, but if we already have the height information, why can't we predefine rivers for you that are made with this tool that you can then edit? So rivers is, in terms of team distribution, Ilya is working on the Tectonics. Nikita has taken the color layers and the rivers, and Andre is working on the blend UI and the integration. So everyone's currently working, but they have a lot of interdependencies. So we actually need to kind of finish all of them at the same time to then bring them together. And that's why we are in between, and we have a bigger sprint to actually release something. Rivers, well, yes, of course, we have the path settings and the gizmos, so you can modify rivers afterwards, and you want to manipulate them, which means basic manipulation is kind of copy pasting them, rotating them, extending them, changing the colors of the river, changing the colors of the river glow is what we call it, the riverbed, things like that. Yep. And lastly, just to quickly tap through the list, blend UI integration is a very internal term for us. I was talking about that in the last stream. Currently, if we want to have a UI panel with checkboxes and select fields and stuff like that, all of that has to be coded. So it takes time from our developers because they need to actually program the interface. And we're now implementing, this is Microsoft Blend, which is a tool for creating those interfaces. And we're implementing that so that Bodhi and I can actually draw the interfaces, can hand them to the developers, and they just need to plug the functionality in, which hopefully will free a lot of developer time and will give us the option to help there by doing UI design on our end. Lastly, we have, where is it? Nope, I'm...
Other way.
Here, there. We have the asset rework and the new assets, which Kiara is currently working on.
Right, and we're going to be having a look at those in a little bit.
Yes, and we're going to have a look at those. So that is the chart. And again, unfortunately, since we don't have anything to live show, that was the best I could come up with to actually give you an understanding of what we are currently working on.
Well, I think your passion was certainly very evident. Absolutely. Right, let's get through some of these questions that started to come in. And they're good questions. They are really, really, really good questions. There was one question that was asked, which I cannot understand for the love of me. So if you could just try it again, that would be great. So the first question that I could see is Apple M1-M2 optimization. Is that a thing?
Yes, that is the M1 optimization. That is kind of, I think Nikita has it on the list, but it got a little bit pushed back. And we know that we have to do it. We just need to find the time to actually do it.
All right, there you are. Another question. Are city maps in pre-alpha yet, or are the devs basically only going to start city maps in the fall?
Yeah, no, they're going to start. However, we have, the concepts are done. So it needs to be done. I expect we are celebrating our anniversary at the end of October, and I expect to be, hopefully, knock on wood, to be showcasing the first prototype then already. It's not that big of a task. It sounds bigger than it is. It is, we hope that we can actually finish city map making by the end of the year, depending on how quickly can we start. So we've been estimating city map making for about 4 months. So if we can start end of August, early September, then end of the year to hand over city map making should be doable. But we're doing the same thing as with the world map editor, which means that we're handing out the iterations for you so you can actually test it, play around with it, give feedback, and it is then growing slowly over time with more and more features.
There we go. Another question. Will you implement climate zones? I mean, how far does Project DEIOS get until basically it's just a complete world simulator, and you press go and it builds mountains which erode over time? And
we have a few climate simulation libraries that we have already parked in our backlog. Because when we were researching Tectonics, we were also researching about actually what simulation libraries are out there that we could use. And we found a few climate simulations that kind of, for example, bring erosion into the model of shaping land masses. Now, we do eventually want to finish the software and bring it to a point where we can actually hand it out to you as a launch product. So I'm pretty sure that the climate model is something that we are going to look at after launch. It's definitely something that we want to investigate. We already have ideas about how to do it. But again, it's like we're not a 100-person team. We're a small team, so we need to prioritize things.
Yeah, makes sense. Will biomes officially then be delayed until after city maps?
Probably yes, because it didn't end up on my list. To be honest, I forgot about biomes when I was writing the list. They are actually also dependent on the tectonics, because once we have the height information and we can pre-color specific areas, it's not that far of a stretch to actually pre-fill those areas with biomes. Now, I would say, depending on how much time we actually need to finish those things, it might be that we can at least start with a small biome, like, for example, a grassland biome or a forest biome, to actually kind of test and experiment with that in combination with the tectonics. But I must say, there is a good chance that biomes are being pushed back to 2023, when we will actually revisit or come back to world map editing to kind of tick off the missing boxes. So yeah.
Will we get a tool to manipulate the height map that the Tectonics create?
I had a long conversation with Ilya today about that, and the answer is yes, but probably not in the first implementation.
Here's a question from a random user. Why does the phrase "Boaty and I will," which you use quite often, why does that sound so much like Boaty will?
Well, random user who's asking this question, because Bodhi will, and then I will supervise and say if I like it, which puts the I into the sentence. And once I am happy with it, then I can at the end say Bodhi and I have done that.
There you go. All right, lovely. Now we've caught up with the questions, so I think that's really, really cool. All right, so Till, you spoke about the asset rework that was coming soon, and talk to us a little bit more about that asset rework. What are we talking about? Shall I go on to the next slide?
Yes, go to the next slide. I have no idea what the next slide is.
Really indicative of this whole asset rework.
Oh, there you go.
So what are we seeing there? And on stream, I know it's really small, but folks, I promise you, this is something that you know what? I'm actually going to try and do this. Hang on, just bear with me here. bear with, as the youngsters say. Bear with. Such an awful expression. Right, I'm going to do something. I'm going to make it big so you can actually see what the hell we're drooling about. And then I'm going to say, you can vanish. No, not you. You can vanish, and I can vanish. So now we're just these voices on the map. But talk to us about these two maps. What are we seeing here?
Okay, so first of all, to give you some background on those things is because Keora, we're absolutely in love with the art style that Keora brings to world maps. So when we approached Keora, we said, hey, we want to create a software that is actually capable of reproducing your art style. Keora was super excited about that and said, okay, yes, I want to work with you on that. But as an artist, he needs to see things to actually give feedback and help us improve. So before I start working on all the assets that we're going to put into DEIOS, I want to make sure that we can actually get as close as possible to the art style itself. So with the export being finished and what was it? The brushes, I believe. I can't remember. There was another thing that was important that we did. We were at a point where I said, okay, Keora, how about we do a review of the state of development of DEIOS and how close can we get to your art style? And that's when actually Ilya did this map. That's when Ilya created the map that's behind me in Project DEIOS, and it is based upon the Edafast map that Keora did and said, look, use this map as a kind of as a concept prototype where you say, okay, this is the goal we want to reach. And I think it is really close. So once we were there, Keora said, okay. I see, I understand. I really know what to do next. I can now start working. And I mean, of course, we can see here are some artifacts with the within the current version where it creates those weird little artifacts. This is just bug fixing that we need to do before we can hand out this to you. But generally speaking, we've now reached a point where Chaora said, okay, cool, I got it. Now I'm going to create all the assets for this, and they will actually fit the art style of those maps. So we can now start. We also have to kind of create the outlines for assets, where we said, I don't mean artistically, I mean kind of documentation requirement outlines. We said, okay, how big do they have to be? How many color layers do they need to have so we can still work with them? And for the past, I would say 8 months, Chaora and I have been basically reviewing, working on that until we got to a point where we said, okay, now we're actually confident that Chaora will not have to rework all the 3,500 assets that he's going to produce again. And we have our core definitions for how assets should be. And Chaora said, yep, I'm happy with that. Let's start with it. And this means Chaora is now working on those assets. And there is going to be a completely new asset pack that is also going to be released in end of August, early September.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, and I mean, a lot of the things that you were talking about earlier in terms of what's being implemented will have a significant effect moving forward. As I was pointing out to you before the show, one of the big things that Chaora can do, which is the map on the left, this map here.
Yeah,
this
the
is
guy map.
This is Chaora's map.
Yeah.
Till you've got the DungeonFog, the DEIOS.
The DEIOS map. Yeah.
Is that you can see that Chaora's got a blend. He always seems to have sort of almost a gradient of color, starting with those oranges at the top and then working down to blues and greens down here. But their blend actually also travels over the assets themselves.
Yes.
So the mountains down here are bluer mountains as opposed to the mountains up there, where
Yes.
there's only a 20% chance of rain. But those mountains are orange. So we're going to see that sort of brush ability to blend the assets as well.
Exactly, because that's why we need color layers. Because then we can actually create layered colors, and once they are sitting on a layer, we can tell this layer, or you eventually will be able to tell this layer to kind of render above all or below props or things like that.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, what does this prop rework, this asset rework entail? We've got a slide for that, don't we?
Yes, I think there should be a slide for that.
There we go.
So that is just so that you know, this is the current batch of assets that Chaora is working on. And you can see that these are, I didn't count them, but they must be about 200, 250 assets, which is mountain ranges and settlements. So there's going to be a completely new set of improved mountains. We're going to see what that means in a minute, as well as a ton of different settlement options, because right now for settlements, we just don't have enough. And this then is going to be followed by, I think, vegetation. And then he will slowly start to work on the different settings, because we know that we want to have a cyberpunk setting as well for world map editing. Super exciting. We want to make sure, so the idea is, just to give you a little bit of context of why we're starting now, is once we transition into city map editing, we still want to give you stuff for world map editing. We don't want to leave world maps just sit there without any progress for the next half year. So what we're doing is we're then using our new asset distribution system that we have, the auto updater, to then hand out new packs as Chaora creates them while we are working on the city maps. And also keep in mind, Chaora will have to work on the city maps as well, because we need city assets. So that's the goal for the second half of the year, is now have our rework of the core assets so that they look as good as we can make them. and then start hand out new assets as we internally are working on the city map editor. But you still get stuff on a monthly basis when we hand out new packs.
Now, just for clarity, what we're seeing behind us, this is all of the assets, but sort of already clumped and arranged together. So it's not like we only have a single C-shaped mountain range coming in. This is made up of 20 or 30 different individual props. We're just seeing them clustered together.
Yes, but Kiara gave us also the like the artistic. He, as an artist, created those mountain ranges, so you can take them and place them instantly, or you can use them. Like every mountain in there is available as a single asset as well. And why? Because we don't have biomes in there yet, because a biome should be actually producing this mountain range. Kiara said, well, let me just give you this mountain ranges preset, which makes it super easy for you to populate mountain ranges in this specific art style.
Fantastic. All right, let's look at the reworking of these mountains.
Yeah.
We've got a slide here for that.
Yeah.
Old and new.
Exactly. So I think I took this specifically to wrong direction. I need to go here. Yeah. I took this specifically to highlight why Kiara and I have been working on improvements, because our first mountains, I think they still look amazing. Yes. Yes. But this brownish color was a bit problematic for the huge variety of maps that you would like to do with. Also, the blending at the bottom wasn't working. So Kiara said, okay, I can do better. Let me try a new approach. And now if you look at it, you see that it has a beautiful blending at the bottom, going into a little bit of brown, and then have much more of a rocky feeling as they go upwards with the new colors there. And I think that works amazing. And the same goes for all the new mountains that are coming in, and the hills and the rocks and stuff that is kind of geologically to place down. Also, I have no screen for that to display, but this mountain actually consists of a ground layer of color, a highlight layer for just the highlighting, and the line art. Because we still have, the whole system does that, we just don't have a UI yet. And again, we can do UI in the future, easier than before, where you can actually manipulate the colors of those things separately.
Super exciting.
Yeah.
Super exciting. I do like that. I think that's really cool. There don't seem to be any more. Oh, there's one more question. Will Kiara be doing the city assets, or will that be handled by another artist?
No,
such as Tony?
Kiara will do the city assets as well.
Okay, lovely. So lots of work for Kiara there. That's all good. That's all good. Till. Any last thoughts? Because that's brought us to the end of today's update from Project DEIOS.
No, as I said in the DungeonFog segment, in the Battlemap segment beforehand, it is currently it's a super exciting phase. It's completely in between, because we have so many things that are currently being produced. I think the exciting part will be our next mapping it out when we have progress. And we will then talk about how easy is it to bring all those things together. Because actually, I think that is August is going to be the exciting month where all those things separately are working, but we will have then to kind of merge them, and that is going to be exciting. So yeah, I feel like it's a great time. I can't wait to. I love live demos, so I can't wait to show the next live demo.
Absolutely.
Thank you everyone for the amazing questions as always, and yeah, from my
There's
side.
one last question
Yeah.
that's been asked a few times, and I'm catching it now for the first time, actually. Do you have a rough idea or a plan or a thought as to when DEIOS will be fully released as a version 1?
Fully released as a version 1, definitely somewhere around the end of 2023. Because keep in mind, the world map editor and the city map editor, once they both exist, the first thing we want to do is bring them together so that you can kind of link a city, like city representation on the world map with an actual city map, so you can transition between those maps. But then we need version 6 of the Battlemap renderer to actually implement that into the software. And although we currently have estimates that say that the version 6 should be ready around March, I believe it will take longer. And we still need to bring the whole thing into the DEIOS software. So while you have, the good news is we're releasing all the new stuff through the auto updater whenever it's ready. So it's going to be like, I would say somewhere in early 2023, we're going to transition out of alpha into beta. But we are staying in beta for some time until we're actually finished, which shouldn't affect you big time because you're still getting all the updates, all the features, and all the assets through our continuous deployments. But for us, realistically, before we actually can call DEIOS a release version 1, I think it's going to be end of 2023.
There you go. Well, all that leaves me to do is to remind you to hit that like button or the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, to say a big thank you to if you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, and to remind you that we'll be back again next month at the end of July for some cool demos, hopefully, fingers crossed, as well as more updates and insights and behind the scenes stuff in Project DEIOS and the Battlemap editor. And so from both of us here in the DungeonFog studio virtual space, all that we have to say is thank you, good night, and
happy map making.
happy map making.